Good evening and welcome to this Friday edition of Coast to Coast. Nice to have your company.
Indeed it is, and thanks for joining us for another show where we'll bring you up to date with the latest in news and entertainment. In tonight's program, stockbrokers answer a call from the wild in a nature twist to the election campaign.
We talk to the man behind a fascinating documentary on chimps at Sydney's Taronga Park Zoo. It uncovered cold-blooded murders.
And we'll also meet Stellark, a man who really suffers for his art. But first, the latest from the National 9 newsroom, and the federal government may not lift tariffs on imported cars as early as planned. Prime Minister Hawke says the local car industry will probably need protection for another 10 years. Meanwhile, opposition leader Andrew Peacock has been in Perth testing a new campaign style.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out in such great numbers today.
It was a more aggressive Andrew Peacock who addressed a lunchtime rally in Perth's Forest Place. The first in a series of similar public appearances, Mr Peacock's new campaign style represents a significant departure from the staged television events the past 3 weeks.
For Australia.
He can't govern his own party, let alone govern the country.
Despite the lone protester, Mr Peacock was buoyed by his welcome and rated the coalition as 6-4 on to win the election. He put the government's chances at 10-9 against, contrary to the results of all the published opinion polls. Meanwhile, the Green lobby campaigned outside the Sydney Futures Exchange today. The reason, according to Tasmanian independent Bob Brown, Australia won't have a future if the environment is ignored.
The most important growth future we have to look forward to. It's no longer growth of the economy that's most important, it's growth of the environmental awareness.
People dressed as native animals sold seeds to Sydney stockbrokers, inviting them to invest in Australia's future. Fiona McKenzie, Coast to Coast.
Perth businessman Laurie Connell has been charged with conspiracy to defraud over the collapse of the Rothwell's bank. He and 2 other former directors faced court this morning.
There was movement at the police station, for the word had got around that Laurie Connell had been arrested again, this time to be charged with conspiring to defraud Rothwell's shareholders. After posting bail of $200,000 and a briefing from his lawyer, Mr Connell had this to say about the timing of his arrest.
And I suppose it'd be just too cynical to suggest that the fact that an election's a week away has anything to do with it.
In August last year, Mr Connell was charged with allegedly publishing false documents. Those charges relate to the publishing of Rothwell's annual reports in 1986 and 1987. Today, 2 other former Rothwell's executives were accused of similar offences. This man, Tom Hugel, at one time Rothwell's company secretary, is facing 4 charges relating to the publishing of false documents and 1 charge of conspiring to defraud shareholders. And this man, former managing director Peter Lucas, not the same Peter Lucas of Bond Corporation, is accused of 5 identical offences. But with bail being set at $1 million, he needed time to meet that. And it wasn't until this man, Perth businessman Peter Briggs, who knows what it's like to be a guest of the government, came to help with bail formalities, that Mr Lucas's release was okayed.
Yeah, he will be about 10 or 15 minutes.
And Mr Lucas didn't waste any time in getting out of the place. John Mort, Coast to Coast.
Former National Safety Council boss John Friedrich is fighting to hang on to the family home. On the final day of a liquidator's hearing, both Friedrich and his wife gave evidence over using council funds to buy a property at Gippsland. Friedrich said the money was his, that it represented overtime worked for many years. He claimed it was all approved, but that's been denied by NSC chairman Max Eyes. And Friedrich's wife, Shirley, earlier testified that she thought her husband got the money from a bank. South Australians can now hear details of sensational evidence given during the committal hearing of Bevan Van Einem. The Adelaide man is accused of murdering 2 teenage boys and has been linked with the mysterious disappearance of the Beaumont children 24 years ago. Today, Magistrate David Gurry lifted a series of wide-ranging suppression orders that had prevented the South Australian public from learning details of the case. In Lebanon, the Islamic Jihad has threatened to kill 3 American hostages if the United States doesn't meet its demands. The threats were accompanied by new photos of 2 of the hostages, Robert Polhill and Alan Steen. The Muslim group did not give America a deadline. The latest development comes on the eve of the 5th anniversary of Terry Anderson's capture. His family remains hopeful he will one day return home.
Somehow or other, in the last couple of weeks, even when things start, I see things that aren't really great, my heart still says that they're coming home.
And if you think our inflation rate is high, spare a thought for the new president of Brazil. 40-year-old Fernando Collor de Mello faces the daunting task of bringing under control an inflation rate that's almost 2,000%. It's a crucial job. Brazil accounts for more than a third of Latin America's gross domestic product. And that, my dear Terry, is the news again from your flu-ridden correspondent.
Thanks, John. Doing well, mate. I thought the news was very interesting. Andrew Peacock went to Perth, to Forest Place, all fired up, only to be upstaged by Peter Briggs leaving in his red sports car from the Perth lockup.
It's a very stylish way to leave, wasn't it, with the old Panama hat? Yes.
I mean, Andrew was really trying to turn it on, and then Briggs, in one couple of words, looked really swish and upstaged them all. Well, speaking of elections and that sort of thing, while Australians prepare to cast their vote, the people of East Germany are brushing up on their electoral skills, which have become a little rusty. After 40 years of communist rule, 12 million Germans have finally are going to get the say in how to run their country.
By day, they still chip away at the western side of the wall and sell their souvenirs. One of the last opportunities to profit from this massive symbol of the Cold War. By night, on the other side, the once untouched communist face of the wall is turned into a showcase for hopeful politicians. Posters which try to explain to a baffled public why one fledgling party is better than an equally newborn opponent. 24 different parties in all. In fact, all the experience, all the know-how is imported from West Germany. Chancellor Kohl has boosted the chances of the Conservative alliance, and the former West German Chancellor Willy Brandt also travels through the wall to speak on behalf of the socialists, leaving many East Germans complaining about Big Brother interference.
The impression is that these parties dominate the whole campaign for themselves. The others, they promise too much and won't keep it.
The latest polls put the Conservatives marginally ahead. Many former communists are running as well, now relabelled the Party of Democratic Socialism. Amongst their candidates, the present East German Prime Minister Hans Modrow. The PDS is expected to pick up 15% of the vote, enough to stop the Kohl or Brandt parties from ruling in their own right. But like the soon-to-disappear goose-stepping East German soldiers, the new government too is expected to quickly become a distant memory. Its first role to negotiate the reunification of Germany, effectively planning its own death. There's one word to describe the feelings of the 12 million East German voters: confused. Too many parties, too little experience. As a result, the polls are showing that 40% of all voters have yet to decide who they'll vote for on Sunday. Robert Penfold, Coast to Coast, East Berlin.
The New South Wales government has approached federal authorities for assistance in locating the owners of an Iranian ship that fouled 3 Sydney beaches last week. Under global environmental laws, the ship owners already face a $100,000 fine over the oil spill, but that could rise to $1 million and include a 7-year jail term.
When the wheat carrier was confirmed yesterday as Sydney's beach pollution culprit, the ship was well off the Victorian coast, its destination Iran. Left behind was a government frustrated that the Iranian vessel had left Australian waters, but determined to make it pay. Today, as the Iran Afzal continued on its voyage home, the Pollution Control Commission announced it would launch a second prosecution against the ship, providing its lawyers agree.
If we conclude that the evidence is there to proceed, then we will proceed.
The Commission will base its case on technical evidence collected by the Maritime Services Board, which yesterday began separate legal proceedings. Under some of the toughest anti-pollution laws in the world, the ship's owners could be fined up to $1 million. Its captain given 7 years jail.
We're in discussions with federal authorities if we do indeed move down that particular path.
If there is a doubt about a successful prosecution, it's the need to ensure the case against the ship is watertight because of the severe penalties involved. One thing the Commission is sure of, while the oil spill may have been relatively minor, the threat to the environment certainly wasn't.
I'm not too sure that one needs a Valdez incident to establish that you've had environmental damage.
As for their ability to pay any fine, the Iranian owners appear to be well covered through membership of an international insurers club. Brad Schmidt for Coast to Coast.
A little girl who has spent all of her very short life in a Sydney hospital finally got to go home today It was the best birthday present one-year-old Shay McIntosh could have hoped for. After a final celebration with the hospital staff, she was ready to commence her new life.
Just 2 days after Shay McIntosh was born, she had the first of 4 delicate operations to correct a congenital birth defect, which meant she couldn't eat.
Well, initially it was very traumatic. I found it very difficult to believe. We knew that there was something wrong, but we really didn't realise what was wrong.
Where Shay's throat should have connected to her stomach, it was instead joined onto her lungs, a defect that affects around 1 in 3,500 babies every year and once claimed many young lives.
Only relatively recently, in the last 30 years, that we've been able to perfect the treatment of this condition.
After spending her whole life in hospital, it was only a few days ago that doctors finally pronounced Shay fit to go home.
It's amazing that she's been through so much and yet she still smiles and so happy, and she's a delight.
Though doctors say Shay's made a remarkable recovery, after 12 months, she's still only 5 kilograms, the weight of an average 2-month-old baby. That's not bothering parents Alan and Karen. They're just glad that against the odds, Shay has pulled through. And today, staff at Camperdown Hospital gave Shay a special farewell, her first birthday, a party the McIntosh family never expected to celebrate. Sandra Falloon, Coast to Coast.
Lovely little Shay, and we all wish her well too from coast to coast. After the break, a reprieve for the Australian cricket team as bad weather ruins the Kiwis' chances of a victory.
Saturday, you're on a winner with the sensational Cliff Richard, Boom Crash Opera and Melissa Etheridge. Hey, it's Saturday at 6:30 on 9.
Mr. Green painted his house with Berger solar screen. Mr. Brown didn't. Mr. Brown's paint provides equally good protection from the sun's harmful rays, but costs considerably more. So, the Greens gained an extremely smart house and put the money they saved towards a nice new lawnmower. While the Browns, well, they're still not quite keeping up with the Greens. Which only goes to show you're better off with Berger.
Fish the water, walk the golden sands together, at one with nature and his story.
Live in classic Art Deco splendour, overlooking Kiama's beaches. Invest in your future now.
Isn't it time you made the move to where the air is fresh and clean? You'll be living in luxury.
Selling now, so take the drive this weekend. Lunch is on us and view Seabreeze Court for yourself.
Nah, 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 nah! This Hilux Grinner is unbreakable! But this Grinner isn't! Because a Hilux Grinner is built like a brick! Grinner's all truck! It can take the rough stuff! And it really cuts a dash! Hilux Ute is Australia's best seller! What's the damage? Ooh, that's low. Hilux Grinner, unbreakable.
Excuse me, did you know your tyres are wearing unevenly? Why not turn into the T-Mart and have them checked?
I'd love to, but my owner's shopping for the lowest prices.
Well, that's what my T-Marts are famous for. Your owner will get sensational low prices on all leading brands. You could drive away with a brand new set of Goodyear, Bridgestone, Dunlop.
You've convinced me.
Let your car turn you into a T-Mart.
You're old, is it? It's easy. 1 second. There you go. Strongbow?
Strongbow alcoholic cider. Get into it any way you can.
Welcome back. After a disastrous first innings in the one-off test against New Zealand, the Aussie cricket team today called on help from above. As rain interrupted play, it seemed the weather could be the only thing to save them from an embarrassing defeat.
Living up to its name, the Basin Reserve was waterlogged, play delayed by 4 hours. The Kiwis made a nervous start, Campbell unlucky not to pick up Franklin.
All edgy, but it dropped short and it's run away for another 4.
That job was left to Peter Taylor and the catching brilliance of Marsh.
Franklin lifting and it is caught.
The right-hander made 28 and the home teamer won for 48. Taylor was spinning the ball a mile.
Fair bit of turn there.
Jones also had trouble on the turning wicket, but Healy couldn't glove the chance.
Oh, that's a misstumping by Ian Healy.
Jones' innings was cautious, lasting just under 2 hours for 18 runs.
That's a lovely straight drive from Jones, and that should go all the way. That's
Jim Wilson, coast to coast.
Well, Australia's Elmer Fudd will be out in force this weekend with the official opening of the duck season. But in Victoria, the confrontations between duck shooters and conservationists have already reached fever pitch.
As dawn breaks across Victoria tomorrow, this will be the scene. Animal liberationists against shooters, police caught in the middle. Today there was only a war of words.
An angry shooter with a powerful weapon in his hand, it's capable of anything out there.
If there is confrontation, it'll come from Laurie Levy.
As in previous years, more than 100 conservationists will assemble tonight at Lake Bullock to disrupt tomorrow's hunt. Once one of Victoria's most popular shooting reserves, the annual presence of animal libbers has seen numbers fall away by 60% to 5,000. But shooters are determined to reassert control of the area by employing tactics animal liberationists long ago perfected. There are plans to buzz light aircraft flown by demonstrators, rescuers will be videotaped by shooters, and the legality of duck rescues put to the test.
So if he steals one of my ducks, then I will place him under arrest.
It's a situation police fear could erupt in violence.
If we have shooters and protesters wrestling on the side of the bank, one trying to arrest the other, one being armed, there's a very great potential for someone to be seriously injured.
The only winners could be the ducks, with shooters pursuing protesters and protesters pursuing shooters. There may be no time to pursue the ducks.
Well, this week on Coast to Coast, we've stretched the boundaries of art to include graffiti and tattoos. But from Adelaide comes the story of a performance artist who believes he can create by just hanging around.
His name is Stellark, and he used to put hooks through his skin and hang in mid-air. This performance is somewhat less blood-curdling, but he does have to spend about 2.5 hours getting well and truly wired. Stellark is hooked up to amplifiers, synthesizers and even laser lights. His body becomes an instrument. You can hear his brain waves and the blood rushing through him. His left arm is remotely controlled by electrical pulses, and he has a bionic third arm that he operates by moving his leg muscles. According to the press release, what we're about to see is a visual and metaphorical expression of the idea of the overreaching of the physical limitations of the body. This, then, is the sound of Stellark. It can be almost peaceful when he's standing still. But when Stellark's fired up, it sounds like a dozen chainsaws cutting glass in a hurricane. While he may have a very noisy body and extremely red eyes, Stellark says he's basically a down-to-earth sort of bloke.
Yeah, well, you know, you sort of, yeah, I'm married, have 2 children, and I teach for a living.
He'll be appearing tonight from 9 o'clock at the Living Arts Centre in North Terrace. It's your last chance to see a man who really is of sound mind and body.
I'm not so sure about that. Still to come, a medical breakthrough for men who thought they'd never be a father.
And Arizona Valley, a grand stage for Hollywood's movie makers. All ahead on Coast to Coast.
You've got it. It was another classic catch on Sale of the Century.
No one has ever dropped the money.
When Stewart settled in for a long inning.
An exciting finish to the week.
Monday, he's back to risk over $40,000 and he's hungry for another big win.
Making a bit of a meal of this, Stewart.
Sale of the Century, 7 o'clock on 9.
It's March Madness at Strathfield Car Radios, and all of our prices have gone mad. Sony 40-watt digital auto reverse AM/FM radio cassette, $299. Digital AM/FM radio cassette with a 240-watt 4-speaker system, $199. And a Voxon AM/FM radio cassette with a 60-watt 7-band graphic and an 80-watt speaker system, $129. So get into Strathfield while our prices are
flying through the clouds to the Republic of Earth.
Beautiful island famous for rum. The man from Cadiz is Spanish with plenty of the cane. David its name, a great place to ski. It's got jungles and seas. The place is outrageous, that's why it's so famous. Woo! Coruba for dancing. Coruba, Coruba for singing. Coruba for laughing. Coruba, Coruba for swinging. Oh yeah. Coruba for dancing. Coruba for singing. Coruba for swinging.
This butterfly is travelling at 100 kilometres an hour. Yet it is blissfully unaware of its surroundings being anything less than perfect. The Honda Legend Coupe has a similar effect on driver and passengers too. The Honda Legend Coupe.
Now you can get 4 favourite Airozone fragrances in convenient pump packs. A breath of fresh air for every room in the house.
It's a breath of fresh air anywhere.
For a bet on Tooheys Golden Slipper or AJC Derby Days, just clip out the $1 free bet vouchers from Tooheys Draught cans. Then take them down to your TAB or out to the track.
It's your best bet.
The very unfunny Joseph Levitch was born on this day in 1926 in Newark, New Jersey. And after years of falling over a lot and pulling faces, he rose to funniness as Jerry Lewis. He teamed up with Dean Martin in 1946, and they took 2 fairly unsuccessful acts and worked them into a blockbuster. By the end of the 40s, they were the funniest people in America. They made their own movies together and then split, with Jerry making dozens of Saturday matinee movies. Later, he even taught Robert De Niro his subtle comic style. These days, he's a big campaigner and fundraiser for multiple sclerosis and still packs them in Vegas. Jerry, you've got a big heart. Better cut down on the starchy food. The military college where all the Americans go to pretend they're really English is West Point, and it was founded on this day near New York in 1802. It's the home of the bullet head and the Velcro haircut, and prides itself on turning out officers and gentlemen, and sometimes women. Here they practice the old shooting down low-flying aircraft with your hat routine. Ben Chifley did the deed in 1949 that has kept journalists and sketch writers busy ever since. It was on this day that ASIO, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, was founded. And that's just about the biggest secret they've managed to keep. Lionel Murphy did the deed and sent the Commonwealth Police in to raid ASIO's Melbourne headquarters to get information on them in '73. And he did! Clap for Jesus! Jesus Christ Superstar, that is. It was on this day in 1972 that the musical had its Australian premiere in Adelaide. There was controversy between theologians, some who denied he ever wore Lurex bell-bottom trousers. However, they did agree he wore platform shoes and a tad of eyeshadow.
Seems like only yesterday, doesn't it? Well, power struggles, political intrigue, sex and contract killings. Well, they sound like the ingredients for a best-selling thriller. But a documentary on the 9 network this weekend reveals that it is part of everyday life in the world of the chimpanzee.
They'd love to spend some of this aggression on Snowy. But just like schoolyard bullies, they bide their time until he foolishly moves out of old Susie's protective range. Then... the tension erupts in a fur-flying free-for-all as most of the lower-ranking chimps seize the chance to settle a few scores while Danny's safely locked inside. Any trouble instantly polarizes support along family lines. But if, like poor Snowy, you have no family, well, you typically end up out on a limb.
National 9 News reporter John Collar spent 3 months with the chimps at Sydney's Taronga Park Zoo filming the chimp from nowhere. and he joins us tonight to share some of his experiences. John, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure, Terry.
Well, just from that clip alone, it looks like that is a community like any other community with jealousies and the outsider having trouble fitting in.
That's exactly right, and you know, it was, concerning the outsider, was the reason that we were there, because this was an attempt to integrate a young male into the Taronga group to try and straighten out entangled bloodlines because of inbreeding, and we went along not quite knowing what to expect, but getting quite a lot.
Yeah, it is a fascinating special, and I suppose one of your first problems was working out how to film this community.
Well, that's right. That was a real problem, and you know, we tried many things. We actually gave one of the chimpanzees a camera to see whether they would do some of the work for us. But of course, as you can see, they're not really cut out for cameramen.
And there's one camera down the drain. It's a pretty expensive exercise by the look of it.
Well, it was, but anyway, after he'd demolished the camera, we decided to try other techniques, and we finished up getting a whole range of mobile and remoted cameras.
Yeah, and those remote cameras you apparently monitored through entire evenings on some.
We did.
stages.
We were there for 3 months in total, and on occasions we did film around the clock to see what actually happened after dark. And we had two remote cameras on the enclosure outside, and one in the night house, and they ran constantly.
Now, these creatures, they're obviously intelligent. They are cute, particularly the younger ones, but they're also very dangerous, aren't they?
Well, I think if this film does anything, it will dispel forever the notion that chimpanzees are lovely, cuddlesome, adorable animals. They are certainly adorable, but cuddlesome they are not.
No. But how powerful are they?
Something like 5 times the strength of an adult male. And they have a very high pain tolerance. They can bite off a finger or some other chimp's finger, and there'll be a bit of yelping, but no other sort of complaint.
Yeah. Now, they are similar to humans, obviously, from their stature, but how human-like are they?
Well, they're very human-like. They're genetically something more than 95% genetically identical to humans, and alike in every respect, really.
Yeah. Even down to plotting murders?
Even down to plotting murders and issuing contracts for murders, which is something that happened during our time at Taronga. 3 young chimps died while we were there, and it seems...
deliberately killed, murdered? Deliberately
killed, or murdered, yeah. And it seems like this was on the orders of the dominant male to get rid of a troublesome bloodline.
I don't want to give us too much away about the documentary, but how were they killed?
They were actually assassinated by another chimpanzee, another young male called Mervyn, and he suffocated them.
Really?
Spirited them away from their parents and took them off to quiet corners of the yard and suffocated them.
Well, in the outside community, the human community, there would have been retribution. Was there retribution for those killings?
Well, oddly, not in this case, because it seems, you know, whilst chimpanzee mothers are normally very, very good, this time it seems that they were under instructions not to protest. And so they just surrendered their young, and it was almost like it was sort of preordained. It had to happen.
Now, out of all those 3 months you spent there, did it teach you anything?
Well, it did. It taught me quite a lot about chimpanzees, and particularly about the fact, as I said, that they're not cuddlesome and adorable. But although sometimes they try to cuddle you, and
now come on, getting to that, one of them fancied you, right?
Well, I don't really want to talk about it.
Go on. Mate, it's getting late. We can talk. One of them really thought you were all right.
One of them, in the current parlance, had the hots for me, Terry, I'm afraid, and so I didn't know whether to be flattered or horrified. But
was it male or female?
Oh no, it was female. It's okay.
That's okay then, no worries. That's quite normal. Well, look, very good luck with the documentary. I've seen it. I think it's fantastic. They're a fascinating subject in themselves, of what you've uncovered, these murder plots, etc., etc. It makes it fascinating viewing. So, good luck with it, and thank you for coming in.
Oh, thanks for your interest, Terry. Thank you.
Yeah, be sure to catch The Chimp from Nowhere Sunday night at 6:30 on the 9 Network. Ahead on Coast to Coast, a scientific study into why we fall over.
Mel Gibson stars in one of the all-time best action thrillers.
CIA front.
International crime.
He was making pornographic videotape.
A nervous cop.
Hey, you want to see crazy?
Ready to crack.
Tough bastard,
He's on the edge, sir.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
The bastard's got my daughter. Are you as good as you say you are?
Mel Gibson. Danny Glover.
What do you mean he got away?
Hey, fire.
Brought to you by Toyota. Lethal Weapon. Sunday, 8:30 on 9.
We interrupt this commercial to bring you the managing director of Maharaja Carpets.
Maharaja Carpets is under threat. My bankers demand payment, so I must sacrifice my entire stock or face receivership. Every carpet is discounted by 80%.
Afghan prayer rugs, $35. Pure wool durries, $125.
This could be our last sale. Please don't miss it.
Sale, March 10 to 19, 457 Pacific Highway, Artarmon. Remember, 80% off every rug.
Well, Charles, you're catering officer. What's for dinner tonight?
Well, tonight we have something really special. Steak Parmigiana.
Oh.
I take a beautifully lean oyster blade steak, seared and sealed on both sides. And then I sauce it lightly in a mixture of onions, basil, and white wine. And then next to it, I nestle a scoop of tender macaroni tossed with herbs. And alongside that, crunchy snow peas. And then finally, I top off the steak with black olives and melted slices of mozzarella cheese.
Oh. Charlie, you've really excelled yourself this time.
Best ever.
Isn't it always the way? Right in the middle of dinner.
Today's steak. Can you imagine anything better?
Interest rates crash. Not 1%, not 2%. At Norman Ross Discounts, we'll pay the interest for you. We'll give you 6 months interest-free terms on furniture, electricals, floor coverings. Battling families get budget-beating prices. Lounge suites from $5.99, 48-centimetre TVs from $4.99, carpets from $29 a metre, hundreds of discounts. Plus our straight-talking, no-waffle finance offer. 6 months interest-free terms. There's no opposition. Norman Ross Discounts is the True Blue discount party, but offer ends on election day.
When you retire, it would be nice to make sure that the home you enjoy is your own. Make a Prudential superannuation decision today.
Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi has accused West Germany of sabotage over a fire at a factory said to produce chemical weapons. Gaddafi is threatening to retaliate if he can prove West German agents are responsible, and his countrymen are already protesting outside the West German consulate in Tripoli. West Germany, which helped build the plant, has denied any involvement in the fire. American spy satellite pictures suggest the fire was extensive enough to put the factory out of commission indefinitely. Former Rothwell's bank director Laurie Connell and 2 former colleagues have appeared in a Perth court charged with conspiracy to defraud the collapsed merchant bank. It's the second time Connell has been charged in connection with Rothwell's. Today he complained about the timing of his arrest.
To suggest that the fact that an election's a week away has anything to do with it.
And in finance news, the Australian stock market has closed strongly, with the All Ordinaries finishing up nearly 12 points. Tokyo's Nikkei Dow has dropped slightly, while London's FT100 continues to improve. A dollar is down. In New York, gold has also fallen. Stockbrokers are the latest campaign target as greenies try to convince Australia to vote for the environment. People dressed as native animals picketed the entrance of the Sydney Stock Exchange this afternoon. They asked stockbrokers to invest in Australia's future by buying forest seeds. And in Hinckley, Ohio, the buzzard has landed, marking the end of winter and continuing a tradition that spans 170 years. Local folklore insists the buzzards have returned to Hinckley on March 15 every year since 1819. The attraction then was some leftover carcasses from a Christmas Eve hunt. Nowadays, it's just the buzz of having so many people waiting to welcome them. And that's a nice hat.
Yeah, only in America.
Let me make the point there, should anybody care to ring. March 15 is in fact what the date is in the United States on this day.
Thanks, John. Well, with Australia proudly being a forerunner in IVF programs, many infertile couples in this country have successfully conceived and given birth to children. To date, it's only been possible to treat infertility in women, but a British doctor has made a breakthrough for men who also suffer from the problem.
Today in a Rome hospital, 31-year-old Francesca Russo holds her newborn baby Maria, surrounded by delighted relatives. A baby she thought she'd never have. For 7 years, Mrs. Russo and her husband Villardo have been trying unsuccessfully to have children. Mr. Russo is infertile because he has a low sperm count. Test tube baby operations have helped thousands of infertile women around the world to have children. The controversial new technique is different because it can help infertile men to become fathers. Nevertheless, British doctor Simon Fischel had to set up a new laboratory in Rome because the procedure is banned here. With specially built micromanipulator equipment, he injects sperm from a husband directly into an egg from the mother-to-be. The parents can watch on a TV screen the moment their baby is conceived. The chances of fertilization with the technique are 1 in 10. Naturally, they're almost zero. But British authorities say it hasn't been proved.
The authority has an obligation to ensure that no clinician or scientist should be allowed to attempt any form of untried procedure without first undertaking properly licensed research to ascertain its safety.
Dr. Fischel, however, says research has been done in other countries and the injection method could help thousands of infertile couples.
This is the real miracle. After the fertilization, when that 4-cell embryo becomes the baby, that's the real miracle.
A story now to interest television executives. Falling over and getting back up again is one of the first things we ever learn, but according to research in the United States, it's a scientific puzzle. While many of us blame clumsiness and gravity for our trips and tumbles, an American professor says it's all in the heels.
You can't help but laugh when those in high places take a dive. Nancy Reagan didn't have far to go, but Gerald Ford could have done himself a serious injury. Actor Chevy Chase played the fall guy in comedy skits when unsteadiness on your feet seemed to be a prerequisite of high offers. Medical records show that each year, 500,000 Americans seriously injure themselves in simple falls. 11,000 falls are fatal. The government's given Professor Tom Lehman a $100,000 grant to find out why people fall and come up with some advice for the clumsy. He straps guinea pigs into a cradle, wires them up with reflectors and sends them across a platform splashed with salad oil. A camera captures the moment and a computer does the rest.
This is the shoulder, here's the hip, here's the knee, here's the heel, and here's the toe.
Having completed the first leg of research, he already has some valuable results.
The slip starts with the heel, and you either control it or you lose it before ever your foot gets down.
When he publishes his report, we know who'll be first to read it. Fiona McKenzie, Coast to Coast.
Monument Valley doesn't attract tourists in the same way as the Grand Canyon, but it's a scene many movie buffs would immediately recognise. The Arizona Valley has been the backdrop of some of Hollywood's best westerns and still attracts film crews by the truckload.
This place is just magic. It's mystical, it's wonderful.
Arizona's Monument Valley.
There's a whole sense of stillness and calm and beauty. And I find it really special.
These rocks, they're just amazing. The color is fascinating.
There is no place like it. A desert plateau forged by nature's irony 25 million years ago. Still, this timeless place ticks with urgency.
Okay, stand by. Turn over. Action!
Today, it's Coca-Cola, and soon it'll be Peugeot. Monument Valley is one of the busiest backdrops for advertising and movie production today. Almost 30 commercials will be shot in this icon of the West this year.
Where else do we get a location like this? This cost is minimal relevant to what we've got here visually. We've got everything.
It was 1938's Oscar-winning Stagecoach that was first to be filmed here. And since, there's been everything from cavalry charges to crashing cars. Everybody from Chevy to a girl in a Chevy.
Chevrolet stands alone in 64.
Still, Monument Valley is Navajo country, a living Navajo Nation park where Betty Cly has tended sheep for half a century. And Susie Yazzie weaves and sells rugs at 72. For them, the intrusion of the daily tourist brigade and occasional brushes with disaster are forgiven for the money pumped into poverty-level lives.
My feeling is I want to see progress. There's so many thousands of these young Navajo people that are unemployed when they come out of schools. And I would like to see more development so it could give them more employment.
For now, Monument Valley is still what the Navajo call Najone, beautiful.
The valley itself is a sacred place to a lot of people, and just by looking at it and walking on it, way deep inside, you feel real good about it.
In this haunting, majestic valley, Roland Dixon often echoes his songs in the canyons his ancestors walked. But in a place they called the land of room enough and time enough, how long do ancient lonely images have when room enough seems not enough even here?
Coming up after the break, a model weekend for aeroplane enthusiasts.
Drop the pilot, try my balloon. Drop the monkey, smell my perfume. Drop the Mahou, I'm the easy rider. Don't use your army to fight a I call you, I need you, my heart's on fire. You come to me wild and wild. And it can't be wrong. Take my heart and make it strong. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone. Anyone I've ever met. Each time you leave me, I start losing control. You're walking away with my heart and my soul. I can feel you even when I'm alone. Oh, baby, I'm like,
Now the big game's even bigger.
Model plane enthusiasts are revving up their engines tonight in preparation for their annual weekend of flying high.
Even the most experienced flyer has his day off, especially when the cameras are rolling. Some models have trouble just getting off the ground, others the landing is a problem. They come in all shapes and sizes, ranging from the conventional to a high-tech version of your classroom paper plane. All these models and a host of others will be put through their paces at the annual Model Aircraft Spectacular at Bulleen Park in Melbourne on Sunday. Susie Goodman, Coast to Coast.
Oh, perfect landing. Well, Friday night is television ratings night for Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide, so let's see who'll be breaking up the Bollinger this week.
Channel 9 romped home in the Brisbane ratings this week, the 5-point lead assuring them a win for Survey 1. Channel 7 finished second and 10 third. The city's most watched programs were National 9 News, From a Current Affair and 60 Minutes, and in third place, the movie White Mischief. Another win in the late night stakes to Tonight Live, with Coast to Coast behind them. It was a close finish in Adelaide, with the three stations crossing the line within a point of each other. Channel 9 won by a nose to Channel 10 and 7. The Logie Awards topped the ratings ladder this week with 31, while National 9 News and A Country Practice tied for second on 27. White Mischief again took out the bronze. The 10:30 slot saw Coast to Coast with a peak figure of 9, but Tonight Live on Channel 7 finished first. In Perth, another easy win to Channel 9, nearly 3 points ahead of 7 and 10. The most popular show in the West was the Channel 7 sitcom Hey Dad, ahead of White Mischief, with a current affair and a country practice tying for third position. And at 10:30, the ratings points went to Channel 7, with Coast to Coast in second place.
The City of Sydney is alive with tap dancing, playing host to the Broadway musicals 42nd Street and Cole Porter's Anything Goes. But the biggest bang is coming from a smaller theatre where dancing man David Atkins is opening his new show, Dynamite.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Choreographer, producer, director, but most of all, David Atkins is a dancer. Now, hot on the heels of his smash hit Dancing Man comes Dynamite, a song and dance explosion.
The difference to it in Dancing Man is that it's more contemporary. We still do all the Broadway stuff, but even when we visit Broadway this time, we're visiting things like Chorus Line and Dreamgirls and Hair, whereas last time we were visiting older shows.
This all-Australian production stars David's dance troupe, the Electric Legs, featuring his wife, Sharita Costa.
We do everything from Charlie Parker's Birdland to Ravel's Bolero to Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation, through to tributes to Broadway, to Gene Kelly. It's just a huge cross-section of material.
Dynamite also stars a showbiz veteran who will be familiar from Another Time, Another Place. 7 years after leaving Young Talent Time, Tina Arena has stepped back into her dancing shoes.
We had to find somebody that could sing, that could dance, and could also act and handle some of the comedy in the show. And that had that something, that extra something that makes the difference, really, that makes you want to watch that person. And we saw some fantastic people, but Tina was the best. She just had something that was very special. I'm probably at my prime now, so I feel I'm dancing better now than I was dancing when I was young, when I was like, my early 20s, or now my early 30s. Kelly and Astaire did their best work in their 40s and 50s. It's a different time. But for the sort of dancing that I do, I think I've probably got, a few more years left before I have to hang up my pointe shoes.
Hot stuff. On the other side of the break, the dynamic sounds of Ireland's Sinead O'Connor.
Tonight on MTV premieres from Rod Stewart, Jenny Morris, Cher, Deborah Harry, Aerosmith and stacks more. MTV next on 9.
Excuse me, did you know your tyres are wearing unevenly? Why not turn into the T-Mart and have them checked?
I'd love to, but my owner's shopping for the lowest prices.
Well, that's what my T-Marts are famous for. Your owner will get sensational low prices on all leading brands. You could drive away with a brand new set of Goodyear, Bridgestone, Dunlop.
You've convinced me.
Let your car turn you into a T-Mart.
Did you hear Jono join the Air Force? No, what for? I don't know. Pass us a small screwdriver, will you? Pass us that small screwdriver, will you, mate? Someone told him he'd love the work. Nah.
Yeah, good work, Jono.
Thanks, Sarge.
Won't see much of his mates. Good job, Jono.
Oh, thanks, Sarge.
Thanks, Sarge. Hey, watch it. Ah! Way to go.
Poor Jono. Yeah, I reckon.
Australia's favourite chocolate, Cadbury Dairy Milk, in the size you can pack in your pocket, has just grown. 10%. 10% more at no extra cost. 10% more of the goodness and great taste of that famous glass and a half. 10% more to enjoy. All the delicious Cadbury Dairy Milk varieties in pocket-sized packs, now with 10% more at no extra cost.
We interrupt this commercial to bring you the managing director of Maharaja Carpets.
Maharaja Carpets is under threat. My bankers demand payment, so I must sacrifice my entire stock or face receivership. Every carpet is discounted by 80%.
Afghan prayer rugs, $35. Pure wool durries, $125.
This could be our last sale. Please don't miss it.
Sale, March 10 to 19, 457 Pacific Highway, Artarmon. Remember, 80% off every rug.
A new range of fashion launched in Brisbane today has a special meaning for Australia's original inhabitants.
A spectacular exhibition of Aboriginal-inspired designs took the spotlight in Brisbane's Queen Street Mall today. The parade is known as the Galanaya, meaning this is the look. Featuring traditional Dreamtime stories, the fashions by both Aboriginal and white designers depict the colours of the Australian bush on natural fabrics. Brisbane's Noel Doyle of the Calca print label says his coat-tail design impressed one well-known entertainer.
His first concert night here in town, Elton John, I was able to, with a lot of work prior, was able to present him a set of tails.
Many garments had a definite modern influence, while originals by Queensland's Lynn Hadley were living art. Most dramatic was the leatherware by Neil MacLeod, a canvas for paintings and prints of the Tiwi tribe in the Northern Territory. The parade will be repeated at the Queensland Art Gallery this Sunday. Michelle Cannon, Coast to Coast.
Do you like the leatherware, John?
What did you mean by that?
Well, it's plain English. Did you like the leatherware?
I particularly like the Aborigine look. That Aboriginal look is fantastic. It really is so Australian. It's great. Why are you smirking? He's being mischievous, folks. Camera one here, please. He's being very naughty. Just don't listen to a word this man says.
St Patrick's Day is nearly upon us, and while many would argue that most weather forecasts have a touch of the Irish in them, it is certainly true of ours tonight.
Cairns, oh, it's lovely with weather like this, you know. Townsville, oh, there's lots of sun in the daytime there. Definitely temperatures in Brisbane as well, you know. Sydney, oh, they'll have weather too. Canberra, oh, there's lots of weather there this time of year. Melbourne, definitely no snow, sir, no. Hobart, clouds, unless it's clear, you know. Adelaide, oh, she's a fine girl, I know her mother. Darwin, oh, there's definitely some hotness there. And Perth, probably. Oh, yeah, very probably, sir. Alice Springs, and I, for one, wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you.
And a reminder that daylight savings will end this weekend in Victoria, Hobart and South Australia. Hobart, Victoria, Tasmania, that should be, in South Australia, making life a lot easier for everyone.
And as we turn back time, MTV are preparing to bring you the Australian premiere of Cher's new single, Heart of Stone, with a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the video. This time she does it with her clothes on.
Don't you sometimes wish your heart was made of stone?
Oh, if I came out half naked for this song, it wouldn't have any meaning to me, you know. And the last one, I don't know what I was thinking about, but it was a certain part of my personality. This is another part of my personality.
That's one of the great songs coming up on MTV tonight, but for a change of pace, Ireland's Sinead O'Connor is still at the top of the charts with her single Nothing Compares to You, and what better way to finish the show tonight as on St Patrick's Eve. Good night.